Hey, look, welcome back. It is Monday. Holy moly, it is Monday, August. The first week of August 2025. I got to take a deep breath as I say that because, wow, it's almost, we're rounding the corner here. we're, we're approaching, it's definitely unbelievable. Well, welcome to the HEF podcast. That is the podcast of the Home Education Foundation. The Home Education Foundation is an organization that lobbies for parents' rights and education. We fight for the right of parents to educate their own children as they see fit. We argue that children belong to the parents. They are the duty and responsibility of the parents, and they should have ultimate authority over them, that they are not children merely of the state, that they belong to their parents. And as such, we have the responsibility and duties to raise them well, and all the authority that comes along with that responsibility and duty. Behind us and with us are our top sponsors, and we want to say a special thank you to our top sponsors, FPEA, that's the Florida Parent Educators Association, the Fisher Precious Metals, and the TBHC Group. They throw the Tampa Bay Homeschool Conference. These are the larger companies that kind of support the work that we do. I don't say kind of. These are the home education families or those who are home education adjacent or just love the fact that we're pushing for parents' freedoms in education, and they get behind the work that we do, and they support the work that we do in a big way. We're very thankful for them. We're also very thankful for all of the parents that support us. If you go to our website and you see our website under flhef.org/support, you'll see options there to donate. That's $5 a month, $10 a month, $25, $50, or on. If you're a business owner and you would like to have your business show support on our recognition wall, there's actually a business owner option as well. We do have a 501c3 for all the advocacy work that we do, as well as the post K-12 connection opportunities that we have. That is our 501c3 that you can make those donations to and feature those as a write-off on your tax returns as well. So there's a lot of really good options, but there's also a lot of really good families out there that love the work that we do, and they want to know how they can get involved and support and help. Sometimes we need grunt work. Sometimes we need those volunteers. And sometimes we need, well, it takes money to run things. The website, the Discord, even being on social media nowadays has a cost. The monthly cost for all the equipment that we use to broadcast and to bring the information out there, everything adds up. So it's all helpful to have the support. But we're very, very thankful, most of all, to have Brenda Dickinson with us today. She's the one who started the Home Education Foundation, her and her husband, Craig, back in 1991, I believe. And she has been doing all of the work as the voice for parents in the Capitol in Tallahassee since home education became legal as an option to choose in 1985. And we're very, very thankful for her and all the work that she's done over the last 40 years. That's 4 decades. And so this morning, I do have Brenda Dickinson with us. Good morning, Brenda.
Good morning. Well, actually, it's afternoon. We have this issue.
I did it. I defaulted back to the morning mindset. You're right. It's been morning for quite a while. Yeah. Good catch. See,
it's
that's
all right.
why you're
we
so
have to
good
work all of our work around this hour.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. So thank you for being with us today. We just got back from West Palm Beach, the Homeschool Expo, the West Palm Beach Homeschool Expo. Really, really cool. Great people down there. Lots of love for homeschooling in general. It is always great to see Coach Rick. He heard that Crystal is expecting, so he brought a onesie that it was a future homeschooler onesie. I don't know where he always has stuff like yeah. He's amazing. That guy is a torch in and of himself. He just lights up a room when he's in it,
He
and
does. He
he's
does.
such a
We love
blessing.
Coach Rick.
Yeah, we
He
absolutely
loves
love him.
our kids.
He does. He does. I don't know, man. Anybody who just loves watching kids succeed more than him. He is just an encourager, a very, very fierce encourager. So it was great. It's always great to see him. He's the kind of person when you're in the parking lot and he sees you from a distance away, he is just yelling and calling out to you, making you feel welcome from the very first moment. So he's truly great. It was good to run into him. Yeah. Um, got a
We
lot of
might
homeschool.
mention that he
Go ahead.
runs a program, though. He runs a
Yeah.
program for PE for students, and he's got quite a large program now, even
Hmm.
international. And he just teaches principles of life and
Hmm.
cooperation and spiritual growth with those kids, and they adore him. But it is one of the what do we call them on the scholarship fund that you can choose
A provider. Yeah.
provider.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he is his group is great. So
They
just a
are.
punch for him. And they support, aren't they one of the businesses that support our work?
They're on our recognition wall. Yes, absolutely. They're one of our supporters. They've been there from the beginning. As soon as we set it up, he was chomping at the bit to be one of the first. So we're extremely thankful for all of his support and all of their community and how they support us. They're fantastic. They're absolutely fantastic. Great program, great people. You won't be missing out on anything. You're wishing you could be elsewhere or anything like that if you're a part of their program. So we
Right.
highly recommend them. Yeah, they're great. Lots of families were there, and very similar to the Tampa Bay Homeschool Conference this year. Lots of really new families, people who are kicking tires on homeschooling, wanting to know what their rights are. Wanting to know how it all works, things like that before they get started. People who have moved down from Chicago or New Jersey because they like it better
New
here,
York.
and New York. We're seeing a lot of that. A lot of that. It's really important, I think, to understand that as we get a lot of these new families that come in, and a lot of them come into Florida. The scholarship is relatively new, but it's about 2 years old now, and there's a lot of normalcy that's starting to set in. I know that's still so early in the program, but there's a lot of people who are already treating it like it's normal because, scholarships, some of the scholarships are normal where they came from, they've been there for longer. But then they come here. It's new in Florida. And I had a lot of really good conversations with parents about um, the importance of understanding that they can do it without a scholarship. And I think we're kind of sort of losing sight of that as this new wave of homeschoolers comes from public school and private school environments where they're a part of these systems, and the systems have carried the heavy load of educating. Um, and that's why parents send their kids to them. That's what they intend. That's what they want. They want a system that helps carry the heavy load. And so then they start thinking, well, maybe there's something wrong with that system, and maybe do I have other options? And they do, but as they pull their children, it's almost like they're looking for a homeschool system, for lack of a better word, to put their kids into. And I had lots of great conversations with parents about how you don't have to do that. They're your kids. You can educate your own children the way you want to. And I had great conversations with parents about, some of them would argue a little bit with me, which I enjoy. I really do enjoy it. Not because I'm like to argue back, but I like to see them stand up for themselves. And I hope that they do more of that. But I would then comment, well, you're arguing with me, and you obviously are good at that. Why don't you just teach your kids that? You know how to read, teach them to read. You know how to argue, teach them to argue. You know how to think for yourself, teach them to think for themselves. And all the things that you know how to do, just teach them how to do what you know how to do. And that's education. The goal is to get them to stand on their own 2 feet and to launch into life. You can do that. You did it. You're doing it. You can help them do that. And all of these systems and standards that we come up with on how to test and how to measure and how to do all of that is extra. It's honestly it's stuff that we use to just justify taxpayer dollars being spent in mass amounts. And when you separate yourself from that and you look at the true goal, the direct goal, which is to get your children to be formidable in life and to stand on their own and to make their own way, you're doing that. You can do that. You can teach them that. And you can break it down to something that simple. And I think I would like for you, Brenda, to dive into tell me about some of the early days, because I remember when we started homeschooling in Alabama, I was about 8th grade and we didn't have anything like the support and the infrastructure and the curriculum choices and the virtual options and the programs and the systems, and we had very little. And I was a kid, so that's the kid's perspective. But you were one of those pioneers. You were a parent. Talk to me about some of those early days and help inspire some of these families that are wondering what they need to do to get started, or to, can they do it themselves?
Well, there was none of the systems when we started. We sort of fell into home education because it was working for us. We would travel with my husband when he would go to an area, and we go to museums, and we joined 4-H, and we were doing contests and reading to the kids, just reading classics and stuff that, the school doesn't consider important anymore. But those were good materials to introduce them to. And as a family, that's what we would do. I could read while we rode. I didn't get car sick. And so we'd pick a book on the, to read on the ride. And my kids would always say, how much longer? Not because they wanted to get there, but they wanted to finish the book before we got there. So you can make a unit study out of just about anything, whatever your children are interested in. And so this was before the law was legal. And we were really running under the radar with our program, but we just continued doing what we had been doing as parents all along. What are your kids interested in? We didn't have the internet. We ran to the library. We got books that would indicate the subject area and the questions that they had. And, sometimes we'd have to make 2 trips to the library in the same day. We spent
a lot of time at the library.
We'd find something interesting in life. I remember coming home from the library one day, and there was a wasp digging a hole in the ground. And so we said, what in the world is that wasp doing digging?
Yeah.
Back to the library we go, because the references we had at home didn't cover it. So it's just catching the teachable moments. When your kids ask questions, they want more information. And now you can teach them to research on the internet to find that, which is so much easier than what we had. But when we started trying to figure out how to make this legal, I was keeping pretty good records because my husband was an attorney, and he said, this is just too good for parents not to have the right to do this. And so in 1984, we started investigating. He researched the laws and found out where we needed to put it. We made a trip to Georgia because they had just passed a home education law up there. And he wanted to talk to the attorneys that had gotten that through. And we had this great curriculum room. It was a Sunday school class, had 3 curriculums: Alpha, Omega, Bob
Yep.
Jones, and Abeka. That was it.
I remember those.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I looked through the curriculum, and I'm not a big curriculum person, because if you really study the traditional curriculums in public and private school, they review the first part of the year, first third. They add new materials in the middle of the year, and then they review at the end so the kids pass the test. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't see paying $75 for a book for a little tiny bit of new material.
Mm-hmm.
So we played games to teach math. We played a
Yeah.
lot of dominoes,
Yep.
different
Yeah.
games like that. And my kids were so fast, even the, multiplication tables, I couldn't turn those cards over as fast as they could answer.
Just isn't
But
that wild?
yeah, it is wild. But, they had all the concepts
Mm-hmm.
down
Yeah.
through concrete ways of understanding. And we did pop beads to do place value.
Mm.
And then when they got to ninth grade algebra, my son was a year behind my daughter, but he was good in math. So I handed them a Saxon math book with the teacher's manual and the answer key, and said, be done with it by the end of the year.
Yeah,
So
that's what my mom did.
so
Yeah.
it's a child-centered way of teaching, because
Yeah.
somebody else develops curriculum,
Right.
and it may or may not be of interest to your child, but
Yeah.
children and adults remember what they're interested in.
That's
So,
true.
so we just captured teachable moments, and as needed curriculum, we never even used curriculum until ninth grade, as I said, in
Mm-hmm.
math. And then we followed Saxon through to, my son did trig and my daughter did calculus at home, but they did it themselves. So when they got
Mm-hmm.
to college, they exempted all of the math. So parents think, oh my gosh, if I don't have a standard curriculum, in elementary school, for Pete's sakes,
Mm-hmm.
my child is going to be a failure. Not true. Not true.
Yeah,
You
like
can,
let's talk about that a little bit because I had parents who were that was one of the big things on their mind, this weekend. So what are, I need something. I need a standard. They were in private school and I don't want to do a bad job. I don't want to pull them and do a horrible job and mess them up. And and so then they're looking for something or some kind of standard or something that keeps up with that standard.
a sequence.
Yes. And I think it's really important to realize like step all the way back out to the big picture level of what's the purpose of a standard. Like what's even the reason, right? I was playing a game with my kids the other day and I was they were playing characters in their game. We were having a role playing game and I was playing one of the characters who was describing to them the location of this other place. And I said, it's 300 crows. And they were like, what is that? I'm like, it's 300 crows. Don't you know what 300 crows is? And they were like, I have no idea. And I'm like, because there's no like standardized way of comparing those measurements. So they were thinking, we don't even have a concept of how far that is. So there's a need. There is a need in a way for a standard. It helps us understand benchmarks. It helps us understand whether or not we're making progress. So I can understand the desire at a very base level to know you are here. It's like when you go to the mall and you see the map and it's like you are here. So you've got the map of everything, but then you also have the part where it says you are here. And everybody wants to know where I am. The challenge is it's so difficult with something so nebulous and customized. And my daughter can be at a college reading level in writing, but she can also then be at eighth grade in math or struggling or lower at something else and higher, way higher. And so they're all of the ranges that then match their interests and personalities and everything sequentially tapping in together can be completely different. And then mix into that you have multiple children. It's very difficult. it can be very difficult to wrap your head around that, I think, as a parent. And I think that's a lot of what scares a lot of parents, to think I'm not enough. Not enough to homeschool my kids. I'm not enough. I think that's wrong, because you are enough. You were always intended to be enough. The great designer decided that humans were enough to raise the children that he intended for them to have. And so we have children and we are enough to raise them. And that's something we have to kind of trust the process, not the specific knowledge of the standards and the moment and where we are in the moment, but the process over time. If you raise a child in a certain way and they're learning, and you raise a thirsty learner, they never stop learning. They never stop learning. Brenda, I never intended to be a lobbyist. I didn't even know what a lobbyist did. And I've learned so much in the last couple of years from mentoring with you and just reading. I hate reading. I was punished with reading as a kid. I would get in trouble for doing something, and just send me in my room with a book and be like, read it. And I hated I grew to hate reading. I'm also mildly dyslexic, so it's not easy. But I read so much now, and I read so fast, and I have to. I have to be able to. And I don't struggle with it at all. Like, it's difficult sometimes. My little mild mixing up of letters, kicks back in, but you push through and you figure out and you keep going. I've been reading the Constitution and the statutes and memorizing the references. I caught myself when I was quoting references to people, and I was like, listen, you don't have to memorize these. Don't worry. I could see the looks in their eyes as their eyes glaze over. I said, just join our Discord, and I'll make sure you have links to them so that you can find them when you need them, and you don't have to memorize them like I do. I'm a nerd. But here I am, this nerdy kid. I used to hate reading as the nerdy kid. I hated it. Absolutely hated it. I'd rather be running outside barefoot playing. I'd rather run outside barefoot on rocks than read a book.
That's typical of young men.
And here I am.
But there's no reason that your mother couldn't have read them to you.
That's true.
And it becomes a family activity. And it doesn't matter what the age of the children are. Everybody enjoys a good book.
That's right.
So interestingly enough, when my kids were going into ninth grade, I wanted to make sure that they were learning to write. And so I had contact with 3 different college professors. And also, we never taught grammar. We never taught spelling. We never taught punctuation. But when I talk to them, it's like, I don't want to miss anything. So what do I need to teach them to do to be good writers? The comment was from all 3 of them, make sure they are read to or they're good readers. Because they pick that stuff up without knowing it by reading books. And my daughter read so fast when she was in 6th grade, she was bemoaning the fact that she wasn't a good speller. And she said, my friends make fun of me in Sunday school because I can't spell something. I said, do you really want to learn how to spell? She said, yeah. I said, start looking at the words. Because she read so fast, she just read over the words and didn't look at the spelling. She's fantastic now. And there never was a problem. So people make things too complicated.
Sure. Absolutely.
It's like you do with your kids. If they don't know something when you're playing a video game, you have them figure it out.
Yes.
That's right. What life is about,
Yeah.
Every day it's let's figure this out. This morning before we came home, I was trying to fill out a form to get reimbursed for dental work. Well, you got to figure it out. It's just, you have to go look at something to get an NPI number. You have to go look at a license number. You have to figure it out. And every day, especially in our jobs as lobbyists, you got to figure stuff out. It's stuff you didn't know before, but you got to be an expert in it by the time you get to the session. So it's that's just life, and you're helping them learn about life.
Yes. Yeah. Courtney Vincent says, my boys don't care for reading, but they all love it when I read to them. Their ages range 10 to 16. Julie, uh, is it Cedeno or Cadeno? Says yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right. They're picking up. We take for granted the level of thirst uh, that comes from being a child. You start at the disposition of knowing nothing, so everything you can figure out about the world is potentially interesting, and it unlocks confidence for you because what you didn't know before and you were too small to do or couldn't reach suddenly is within reach, or you have the confidence of being able to do, and little by little you chip they reach for more and grab more. And I was talking to one of the parents and I said, this quote, I can't remember who said it, but they said that education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. When you take something small and instead of giving the kid the answer, you give them the challenge. They come to you and they say, "Hey, Dad, what is this, or how does this work?" And you go, "Figure it out. I'm not telling you. I know how it works, and I'll tell you when you get it right. But I'm not telling you. I want you to try it for yourself." And however far they get, when they come back and you celebrate, not that they got it wrong or right, you just celebrate how far they got themselves, they'll do that again because you're positively reinforcing the progress that they're making and the concept of making progress. And they'll take that skill, they'll take that mindset, and they'll apply it to any subject, any matter, anything you point them at. And they'll then start to learn, I get confidence by trying. I get knowledge by trying. I get knowledge by trying. And they'll just keep pushing and they'll become lifelong learners.
I remember I read a lot because we didn't have any role models when we were starting out home educating our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I read about, and I can't at the moment remember the name of the book, but it was by a psychologist and it had to do with a child learning. And they said if you force a child to learn something like reading before he's ready to read, he will always hate reading.
Yeah.
So there's the concept of read to them. They like the adventure, they like the stories,
Mm-hmm.
but making them do it before they're ready. And then there was another, Dorothy Moore was one of the early, I don't know what to call her. She was a researcher and she taught reading. And
Mm-hmm.
when she was teaching, but she and Raymond Moore were big leaders in the homeschool community in the beginning. And
Mm-hmm.
and the concept was if you read to a child enough, they'll start reading on their own when they're ready to read. And that
Yeah.
is so true. This is so
Yeah.
true.
It
So
is.
I wish I could, on the top of my head, I didn't think about throwing that in today, but there is a book out there. The other book that was really helpful, but we were already doing this, but when I came across the book, I thought, I did it right. Because Piaget says that children learn first in concrete, then it goes to mental math, and then they can work in written. And we've
Mm-hmm.
reversed that in the education system in public and private schools because teachers want something to grade. And so they can't know a classroom of 20 kids whether they got the concept or not if it's a concrete or
Mm-hmm.
even a mental. So they have to introduce written algebra, not algebra, written math problems in first and second and third grade. If you haven't done the concrete, then they don't understand math and they will hate it for a lifetime. But if you do it enough, and like I said, we use games. So it was pop beads and dominoes and stuff where they could count. And one day my daughter was in the kitchen. She was just building with dominoes. And she said, look, Mom, if you take the one from this side and put it over there with a 9, you have 10. I said, it went from concrete to mental. And I said, yes, we call that addition.
Yep. Yes. Yes. You're so right. And there, Julie says, I have 5 kids. They all started reading at different ages. They will read when they're ready. The math, the progress, the things will come. I think kids, I think it's really important to understand that kids don't feel powerful. That they're all small and they're all, whether they can articulate it or not, they're keenly aware of how small they are as they grow up. Everyone around them is bigger than them. Everyone as they grow. Every countertop is above their heads as they're smaller. Like they understand how small they are in the world. So things that help them feel formidable, powerful, bigger are helpful. Whenever they do it by them, this is why kids want to do it by myself. I want to do it by myself because they're so used to everything being bigger and out of reach for them that the idea of doing it for themselves is so important to them. So if you can harness that and give them the key rather than giving them answers to things, give them the key to more power. They'll chase it themselves. They'll be thirsty for it and hungry for it. My youngest Chunky was 4 years old and he really wanted to play video games.
His name is Alistair.
His name is Alistair. Yeah, we call him Chunky. Anyway, uh, he was 4, turning 5 in February, and he really wanted to play video games. And I'm very strict about there are patterns in games, and games are all about patterns. And it's important in my mind not to dump a kid into that too early so that their brains turn off because modern games do a lot of the thinking for people. Older games a little bit different, but I digress. So I made a rule where he couldn't play video games at all. He wasn't even going to be able to touch a game. He could watch his brother play or other things, but he wasn't going to be able to do that till he learned how to read. So now he's like, I want to unlock this door. I really want to unlock this door and I have to figure out how to read. He goes, Dad, what does that mean? And I said, that's a good question. That's a good question. Here are 3 books. You need to read all 3 of them, and then I'll give you some time on a video game. And then I'll sit with him and guide him through it. And he was struggling. And I said, you don't have to read 3 different books. You can read the same book 3 times. The importance was getting him to look at the words and stare at them and understand that they're symbols and that the symbols, when they get together, make patterns and that those patterns are words and that words have meaning. So then as he was sat down and he said the words out loud, I knew he wasn't getting it. Then I was like, he said, Dad, I'm finished reading. And I said, okay, great. What was the book about? And he looked at me like, I don't know. I was just saying the words. And I said, well, go back and read it one more time. This time, tell me what the book was about. So he comes back and he's like, it's about a bunny. And the bunny's playing in the field. And he likes springtime and summer. And I'm like, okay, good job. Now let's play this video game together. And so then we would sit down. And so he started to unlock this door. He didn't have the power to access something in life. And he starts to realize that reading is a key that unlocks a door to other things in life. And then I just reinforced that with him. We're only 5 months in, and the kid is not learning his alphabet. He's not writing his alphabet letters. He's speed reading paragraphs, telling me what they mean, and talking to me about things with challenging questions. And it's mind-boggling that in 5 months he's gone from not being able to read to being a fast reader. He'll look over my shoulder and just be reading things over my shoulder. And it still shocks me that he's capable of doing that, but they are. You just have to get them to unlock. They're thirsty for it because everything in their world they're too small for already. You give them the key to something that gives them a sense of like formidability and power, they'll chase it. They'll want it. They'll thirst for it. And just keep throwing those challenges in front of them. I think as parents, we don't like to see our kids in pain or struggle, so we tend to go, oh, well, here's the answer to that, or oh, here's what that means, and we tell them. But we tell them, and that takes away their struggle. It takes away their challenge, and they don't get to feel good about overcoming that challenge on their own. And that's an important part of it, I think. You're
I
going to say
didn't get
something.
the name of the book. I got distracted with Piaget's order of learning, but the book is built on that, and it's called Teaching Kids Math by Karn Barnett. And this was a book that she was teaching to in-service teachers. So these were already teachers in the public school system, and she was reorienting to them how kids learn math. And I thought it was a fantastic book. It may be out of print now, but that was the book that confirmed that what we were doing with games, and she showed you how to make the manipulatives. I didn't have time to make them. I just found something that was very similar and purchased it, like dominoes or pop beads. But anyway, just throw that out for somebody that's interested in it. So she was a PhD at the University of California, Berkeley. So if that's what she says is good, probably will work for you.
Yeah. I think you said something, it was a very small statement in what you said, but you said, I didn't have time to make those manipulatives. And a lot of parents, I think they feel that today. They feel that same way. And I think that's one of the things driving looking for this system or looking for that standard, or let me put them in this or let me put them in that or do this. You've got enough time. As little as it may be, you've got enough. And you are enough as a parent. You're smart enough. You know enough. You can read enough. Like you are enough. And you need to know that. You need to know that as a parent. They're your kids. And by law, you have the right to teach them as you see fit. And I think that's something pausing on too, that in early public education and private education, the concept of schooling, once it became legal, once you put something like public school in and it's mandatory to attend a public school, then all other attendance options are illegal because you've now spelled out one.
Right.
And so then it's like, oh, wait, let me back up. We now lost the right to private school. Let's put that back in there. Pierce versus the Society of Sisters. And they put that back in there. Private schools those are a good option too. And so we start our private schools and in our homes, and we homeschool. And that's how homeschooling kind of came the moniker kind of came about and became popularized. But for all of human history, parents have taught their own kids, and it has worked. And we have progressed in culture, in society, and throughout time with parents teaching their own kids. And it's only a very recent experiment, this public school concept, and yet it's become so default in everyone's mind. You're enough. You are more than enough as the parent to teach your kids. And the beauty of the way it's constructed in Florida, that's different just for anyone who's listening or might be new or thinking about home education. Brenda did not want it to be called homeschooling. In Florida, when we put it into law, she was very adamant about that. And I think that is a stroke of brilliance, because it is not homeschooling in Florida. It's home education. The emphasis isn't on whether or not you have some systematic approach or standardized approach that's similar to what they do in any other school environment. It's not a school. It's education that you're pouring into your child, that you're lighting them up with. And you can do it because you're the parent. And you directly have that right without having to be enrolled in a particular school. They're yours and they can be with you, and that is their attendance track. That's a beautiful thing.
I think the beauty of the home education law is there's no curriculum requirement. We don't have to report to the superintendent that this is the curriculum we're going to be using. In some states, I believe New York is like that. You have to get approval for your curriculum to be able to teach your children at home.
That's mind-blowing.
We in Florida, we fought really hard to make sure that parents made those decisions, so you can customize it for each child. And the standard, believe it or not, was put in there. The standard was no testing, but that the child make educational progress commensurate with his or her ability.
Right.
And that was put in there by the Department of Education person that we were working with to craft all of the choices that are for evaluation, because she had taught children with special needs. She didn't want a
Beautiful.
test score. She didn't want anything that's standardized. She wanted it to fit every child with the ability that that child had. And
Mm,
so, at the end of the year, you just have to show the child made educational progress from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And guess what? Nobody can determine what that is except a licensed psychologist. So don't use that option. That's an option for kids with disabilities. And maybe
mm-hmm.
their level is, not as high as some of the other children. But the standard is so broad, and it
On
gives parents
purpose.
total control. We don't ask permission from the superintendent. At one point, that was a real push by some of the legislators to make sure you were screened, to make sure you weren't a child abuser,
Right. Right.
and
I remember
given
that.
permission to home educate your children. We got it reversed, and it was
Mm-hmm.
actually reversed by the person that put it in there, who was, by the way, a Democrat. But she
Mm,
saw that what they had done to tighten down the abuse laws really weren't working. And
mm.
so, I mean, God just works in amazing ways.
Yeah.
She felt like the family should have the right to do that. So she was willing to take that out of the law when we came back the next session. But
Mm.
um, it's there's such freedom. And
Yes.
I hate the thought that parents come into home education, they bring with them all of those, as you say, standards, benchmarks, test scores, the order and sequence of how things are done in a public or private school. It's really hard for them to home educate their children. The first year, they almost don't. They
Right.
follow some pattern or
Mm-hmm.
some curriculum. Um, the second year, they're like, my child already knows this. I don't need to do every problem in the book. My child can
Mm-hmm.
spell. We don't have to have spelling quizzes every week, because that comes out of the public school. You have to realize those curriculums and the things that they do in the school are trying to fit a broad range of learners.
Yep.
So you've got low level learners and high level learners, and somehow they have to hit a medium so that you repeat enough, the lower learners, or the ones that are slower to learn,
Yep.
get it. The higher ones are bored
Move the
stiff.
middle. Yep.
So, but you don't have a classroom of 20 kids that you have to pull along.
No.
You have
No.
to customize it for your individual
Mm-hmm.
child. And when you can do group things like unit studies by reading books together, or doing 4-H projects together,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever is a group one. And, like you were saying about Chunky, is he saw his brothers and sisters doing it. So he comes into it wanting to be as fast and as good as they are,
Yes.
and so they learn faster
Yep.
because they have incentive than the
Right.
first child. So
Yep.
you can do a lot of group studies. They may not get every detail, but
Right.
typically children are going to ask if they don't understand.
Yes.
And those questions are more information, more information.
Right. Yeah. 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 That's so true. It's so true. And I don't know if I can say this on air, but I'm gonna venture into it. But a lot of parents, when they're coming out of that, I was recommending to them, take that first year and don't just watch them like a hawk. Figure your kids out. Like, what makes them tick? Watch them. Watch what they're interested in and watch what they pursue. Don't feel like you have to do anything, even. Nothing even really matters toward college or anything else until ninth grade. So you've got this buffer where you can take a year and watch your kids. Just see what makes them tick. Figure them out. Figure out how to light that fire for them. And then what that also does is, at the end of that first year, when you realize you didn't really do much and you didn't screw up your kids, there's a sense of confidence that kind of gets born out of that, where you go, okay, cool, and now I know what they're passionate about or what they're into. This year we're gonna dive in and start pouring into those fires. And I'm telling you, man, like that, it does a lot for the parent to kind of reduce the anxiety and take a step back from this systematic structure that's been crammed down our throats for so long, that you can realize you don't have to do it anything like that. Nothing has to look like that at all. As long as your kids are showing progress commensurate with their level. Did they do more math problems this year? Great. Like, did you work some progress in? Great. And what, like Brenda said, what is that progress? That's loosely defined, and that's up to you to determine. So as long as you show progress in your portfolio, to your working with your evaluator, build an understanding, work with an evaluator that understands your situation and you. There are a lot of home education. There are a lot of people who have teaching certificates that are home education friendly, they understand home education and not just public school or private school or schooling. They actually understand the educational freedom part of it. And they can work with you and go, oh, okay, I understand this and I understand that. And they'll look your portfolio over and work with you. And there's great freedom and there's great benefit to figuring out how your kids work and what they're about and playing to that as you move forward. But it's so important. Bring the anxiety levels down. You don't have to be a college professor to educate your own kids. You don't have to be a Nobel Prize winning scientist or have launched a rocket. Like, you can YouTube so much nowadays.
Yeah, that's so true.
That didn't exist when I was growing up.
We use field trips to motivate a unit. I hated history going through college. I was in a advanced, I forgot now what they call it in college, history class. And I hated it because it didn't get into the period. You didn't live in it. You didn't understand why they did what they did during those times. And so we would pick like 100 years in history, and we would spend that year eating the foods they ate and doing movies that showed the period costumes that they did. And there's all kind of things in Florida, like, in Jacksonville, there's Castillo de San Marco, and Osceola was kept there as a prisoner, as one of the Indians from the Seminole tribe. Get into history like that. Boys love those kinds of things.
Yeah,
and so, you can just move into those periods with learning about what was going on in Florida, the history of Florida, learning about the Trail of Tears, because they were Indians that broke away from the Cherokee tribe and came to lower Alabama, and then they became Seminoles and lived in the swamp. And how did they live in the swamp? What were the reptiles? What did they have to learn to navigate? And poor old Swamp Fox, he won the Revolution in the South because he knew how to navigate the swamps, and those redcoats didn't know how. They only marched in unison. But they retreated and they lived in the swamps, and the redcoats couldn't get them. That's where the attack and retreat method of fighting came from. Boys love that.
Yeah, we do. Why won't they line up and shoot at us like gentlemen? I don't understand.
So I got so excited about history by teaching it that way, and my kids loved it. My daughter was reading a series by Gilbert Morris about the Revolutionary, I believe it was Revolutionary War. And one night at dinner, she broke out talking about the strategy of that battle at Gettysburg, and my husband had the knowledge. I hadn't read the book, so I'm learning, as they're teaching me about the different things. But, I mean, she's a girl. She figured it out. She liked
Mhm.
the way he wrote, so she read all his historical books. But you don't have to just study dates and time periods.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's it. You can make history come alive, and that, I think, is what the
I think
exciting
that's the
part of
key.
doing it at home is.
Yeah. And I think that I think you're right. That is the exciting part of learning at home is that everything comes alive. It's really hard to run an experiment with 30 kids in a classroom or 20 kids in a classroom. When you've got three, it's a little bit easier to do the goopy, messy, physical stuff that you can, you know, clean up after yourselves. There's a lot more you can do that's super hands on. That's why it blows my mind when we were fighting over the PEP um, restrictions right out of the gate, because
Right.
there you can tell there's this disconnect between like this pristine everything comes in packages boxes and it has to be made at scale for 20 kids, and why would you need a kayak? I'm like, well, let me tell you what we were talking about. Like you could do an entire year's worth of history by just taking your kids hiking and talking about how difficult things were and how they used to do this and how they used to do that and what it was like, and see how hot it is this time of year, see how cold it is this time of year, look at like there's so much that you
Right.
can make real. You can make the learning and the history real for them in ways sitting in a classroom and reading about it and then jumping back on Fortnite with your buddies after school doesn't really give you. And so there's just so much. There's so much
Or
as a
studying a hurricane as the tornadoes are coming ripping through, and we have our
yeah.
lantern as we're reading about what causes hurricanes and the tornadoes that spin off, and et cetera, et cetera. It's
Hmm.
like, man, that made an impression.
Yeah. I was building a kitchen cabinet counter thing on the back deck last week, and I was doing my measurements and showing the kids how when you cut the blade also has a width, and so you have to then compensate as you're measuring for this and
Oh,
that, and
math, would that be math?
it was. So I did my measurements, and then I started to get into the project where I had measured this and measured that, and I'm like, oh man, what were my measurements? And so I would say them out loud to the kids, and then I would say, all right, this one is 22 and 3/4, and I need to know if 19 and a half is correct. Is that two and whatever quarters taken off? And then they were like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, do the math. I already did it. You do the math. Double check me or we're cutting this wrong. Like, help me out. And they loved jumping in and helping and being helpful. Like it gave them access to feeling powerful and formidable that they can do something. But it also made them have to realize there's a real world application for understanding the fractions and the ratios and the math and how these things fit together. And is that a right angle? If it's not a right angle, then the cabinet doors come out looking like this when they're done. you know,
That's
that's what a right angle is.
application that makes math real.
Why is that called a square? It looks like a triangle because it gives a 90-degree angle, and that's how you
Laboratory.
make squares. And they're like, oh, there's just so much that's basic that, there's so much they can learn just hands on. Keep putting them in challenges, keep putting them in things that you do. The things that you do, bring them along with you, and you're good to go. I had a lot of really good conversations with dads. This not my dad, dads this weekend as well. As I love seeing dads more and more involved. One of the dads that I was talking to actually worked with the school system down there, and he said, the more I work with the school system, and the more I realize I can do this. And I thought, yes, you can. And here are the statutes that give you the freedom to, and here are the laws that spell out what your requirements are, and here's how free and open it is, and here's how you can flex your freedoms and have the openness to spread out and do that. And he was like, thank you for showing me that. And I said, well, jump in our Discord, because if there are ever questions and we're not here at the expo and you have these questions and you want to know, like, We have links to documents. We'll provide links. We'll provide community answers. These aren't opinions. We're not interested in our opinions. Yes, we have them, and we like our opinions because who doesn't? But when you have a question about what you can or can't do, and you want to know what your rights or freedoms are, you need sources. And Facebook is great. Everybody's got opinions, but you want a place where you can go where you've got accurate information. Jump in our Discord. That's the promise of that place, that you can find good answers, accurate information. You can be confident and know. I got an email this morning from, I can't remember the county, but they were asking me to interpret what the parent was asking. They're like, what is this parent even asking us for? The parent was wanting to know how long they have to keep their portfolio. And so I realized what the parent was asking. Like, how long do I have to keep my homeschool records, And I was like, okay, here's the statute number, and here's the reference, and they have to keep it for 2 years. And as I encourage the parent to jump in our Discord, let them know that if they want to know more like this, they want to feel comfortable. Because if you're asking that information from the county, from the people who are always trying to get one over on you, how do you know? How do you know they're not just telling you, oh yeah, the letter of intent, we like our letter of intent to have all of this extra information on it because we're going to need this and we're going to need that and we're going to need this, and at some point we'll need this from you, and it's good to know if they've had immunization records. That way, if you've ever come up to the school and you want to take a class, you can. Like, you don't have to give them any of that. By law, the only thing that's required is their legal name, their date of birth, and the address. They're done. And if you want to get super, super technical, the county doesn't approve your home education program. They don't give you permission. You're giving them your letter of intent. And it's not required for you to prove your letter of intent. That's their record keeping. You're just required to send it. So if you take a picture of yourself sending that in, you're done. They lose it. They lose it. You can send them another one just so they know. But the point is, know what your rights are and know what is required of you. And you don't have to give ground on a lot of things. You have a lot of flexibility. You have a lot of freedoms. They're spelled out and protected, and it's very important. And thank you, Brenda. I love that you shared with us today the providence of how some of these came to be and the importance of the flexibility of the progress commensurate with your level. Having the person there in the DOE who had worked with children with disabilities to understand the nuance of, hey, we don't need to put that standardization stuff in here. This needs to be more flexible so it can apply to everybody. That was brilliant. That was divine. And it's
divine.
beneficial to everyone that it's there. And I would say I shudder to think of what it would be like without you, but I grew up without you. We homeschooled in Alabama. It's different there. It's different. It's not terrible, but like some states have it a lot worse. But we didn't have you. We didn't have public school sports that we could participate in, Bright Future scholarships that you fought for, dual enrollment, the transcript. A lot of counties will tell parents, oh yeah, you could do this, but you won't get a diploma. And now they scare them with that subtle little reference like, well, everybody needs a diploma, don't they? And they don't realize that the way that the home education, the letter of termination or the termination document for home education, that affidavit's a legally binding document that is just as good. It is on par legally with a diploma. That colleges are required to accept it the same way they would accept a diploma, and that it's reciprocal. A lot of parents don't realize these things, and they're spelled out in law, and it's very important for them to know what undergirds them, what they can stand on and stand firm on. And if you're a parent and you don't feel confident and you want that kind of confidence, jump in our Discord, ask those questions, get those answers, get the links to things. You're not getting our opinion. We'll show you where the law says it. We'll show you what it says. You can copy paste that verbiage and send your replies. We want all the home education families in Florida to have that kind of confidence as they step forward and educate their own children as they see fit. It's so critical. So critical. Brenda, we're at time, and I always like to give you the wrap up So, what would you like to say?
I just would like to encourage parents, as we hope we have today, that they can do this, that they have the freedom to do it. No one's looking over their shoulder. And
Mm,
there are plenty of people that have completed the journey, which we have a book available written by one of our homeschool parents,
that's cool.
and how you can develop a transcript in high school, put it together. Now, the colleges are going to want to see a transcript for
Hmm.
a university, but they want to know what you know. And so, if you can follow the guide that's in that, completing the journey, it's on our website, isn't it, Jason?
We actually have it in our Discord linked. So,
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
Um, that's a good guide. It's not,
Hmm.
the only way you can do it, but it's
Hmm.
an easier way to develop a transcript. And, that's just about all you need for college. And in
Yep.
community colleges, all you need is that affidavit, and they are going to admit you to the college. You will have some
Hmm.
testing, but then you've jumped into their system. So, um, we Florida has some of the best homeschool laws in the nation with
It really
very
does.
little accountability. But that
Hmm.
little accountability that we have by registering our program with the superintendent keeps us from having the truant officer show up at our door. We
Yep.
have an entire year to complete our program and show educational progress. You don't have to keep hours or days. You don't have
Yeah.
to fulfill any of the things that the schools do. You can take vacations when you want to. I mean, there's just so many
Hmm.
benefits to the way the home education law is written. So enjoy your freedom. Don't feel like you have to bring school home.
Yes.
But in the first year, that's what most people do. So we're not criticizing you. We're just saying, as you progress in this process, you probably will throw off a lot of those expectations from public or private school and do your own thing to customize the
Hmm.
education for your child.
Absolutely. I think I would only add to that. I don't have anything against micro schools, but if your first jaunt into homeschooling is to look for a micro school, I encourage you to take your time off and see your freedom first before you jump into another program. And that's any program. Any program. It doesn't have to be a micro school. Before you just jump full long into any program, spread your wings and see what it's all about, see what your freedoms are and feel that. If you want one of those programs, by all means go back in. Go get them. Go get them. Do what your family needs. Do what your family needs. But understand what your freedoms are and how beautiful they can be. That's it.
If you choose a micro school,
Hmm.
you jumped into a school.
Yeah.
And we tend to want to encourage parents to customize the education for each child and educate that child versus putting them in a school system of any.
Hmm. Of any kind. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You're the parent. You're the main educator. They're yours. I was talking to one of the parents. I'm sorry. I thought we were done. We're done. Give me 2 seconds. Because this was a funny conversation from this weekend. I was talking with one of the parents, and I said, if you have your kids and they're in any of these programs or whatever, and they grow up and they're a real, they're a real jerk or whatever. No one looks back and goes, "Oh wow, the school really did bad by that kid," or "That micro school really did horrible," or "Man, that private school really messed them up." No, they look back and they go, "Wow, their parents really screwed up somewhere." That's what people do. We look at these like grown adult young people and we go, "Wow, their parents must have really messed up." You get the blame. You get all the blame regardless. You might as well have some of the say. And you by law get all of the say in Florida. So use it. Use it. Take your kids, teach them, raise them, educate them, steer them up, train them, make them who they need to be. You can do it. You can do it. All right, I'm done. I'm off. That's it. Last thing. Anything else, Brenda?
No,
All right, all right. On that note, we're gonna go back to our sponsors and say thank you to Arate FPEA, Fisher Precious Metals, and TBHC Group. We're very appreciative of the support that you show us. We're also extremely appreciative of the support of all of our families. We have about 106 families supporting the work that we do, and there are 114,000 home education families in the state of Florida. If we could just get to even 1% of those families supporting the work that we do, it would mean amazing things for the kind of things that we could accomplish. And we could finally say that we're fully funded. As of right now, we're not fully funded, but we are solely funded by those who believe in the work that we do and support us, like the parents, like the families, like our top sponsors. So we just want to say thank you, and we want to encourage you that if you have been thinking about supporting the work that we do or wondering how you could help, please go over to flhef.org/support. Pick one of the monthly options and donate. It is extremely helpful, and it extremely beneficial. And we do see all the names that come in. We know the families, and when we see you come by the booths when we're at any of the conventions, it's always an awesome thing to see the families and know whether the support is great or small. We love having you with us. We appreciate you. Until next week, we thank you for watching and commenting on the HEF podcast, the podcast of the Home Education Foundation. And without further ado, I will turn your Monday back over to you.